Now this is happening.
Excuse me. Excuse me. What are you doing?
That's how I roll.
Wish I had a tail. Wish I had a tail. 'Cause if I did, then I would swing it.
Right now in Warframe, our beast companions are really good. Arguably the best companions in the game based on the fact that they increase the amount of resources we can get in a game where resource farming is a pivotal part, right? There is Kubros, Kavats, Predicites, Vulpaphilas, and of course the Helminth Charger. Now, that's not to say that they're better than robotic companions or sentinels, because I still think robotic companions are functionally better, especially when something like the Verglass Prime exists, in terms of whether it's crowd control or full-on nuking large groups of enemies, but beasts right now are good. Granted, they can still be a little bit squishy beyond a certain level, which I prefer them not to be, but there are mods to help you with your survivability. So they are the best companions for farming resources thanks to 3 new retriever mods: Loyal Retriever, Prosperous Retriever, and of course Resourceful Retriever. These 3 mods give you different chances for double drops of either credits or resources or both, depending on which mod you have equipped on your beast and what I guess you are grinding. Now, beasts can also deal way more damage than before thanks to postures, and also thanks to damage changes brought with the Kome update and the addition of claw weapons for all beasts, which my former stockpile is still reeling from. Thanks to so many new claw weapons and so many former needed for me to max them out, so I'm running dry on former. So let's just jump right in, okay? These are my 5 favourite beast companions since the companion rework. No robotic companions, just beasts. Now, this is my Chaser Kubro, my wobbly sausage. I know. This might very well be the best pet in the game right now, simply because on top of the new retriever mods giving you extra resources when you pick them up, the Chaser Kubro also has a mini desecrate ability called Retrieve, which gives you a 45% chance to scavenge extra loot from dead enemies and also lockers in a 30-meter radius. In Update 37, Retrieve was given a slight buff to make it select targets and of course loot faster, so it is constantly looking for loot, whereas before it was a lot slower. Pair this with the new mods, like I said, and this right now is pretty much the de facto loot pet in the game right now. On top of this, the Chaser can also disarm and stagger enemies inside a 10-meter radius with its neutralize ability, which also got a little bit of a rework if you want to mod for that. But I've chosen not to. Now, this is my Chaser Kubro mod setup. Yours will no doubt be different. Mod for yourself, have fun, that's the main thing. Now, I've gone for Tenacious Bond so that my 50% crit chance on claws will give me a final critical damage multiplier higher. Momentous Bond simply so that anytime I kill an Eximus unit, which in the Steel Path there is plenty of those, is going to give my companion 120% bonus of a random elemental. Duplex Bond for clones. Now, your clones won't be able to cast any of your abilities, but they have got a 50% chance of dropping energy orbs. You could switch this out for Contagious Bond if you preferred that. Synth Deconstruct is going to give me, hopefully, health orbs. Resourceful Retriever because I don't really care too much about credits. Then I've gone for Retrieve, of course, because I want that mini Desecrate. Animal Instinct for Loot Radar. Enhanced Vitality, which you can switch out for Link Vitality depending on which Warframe you're using. I think if you bring Inros, you can have up on 10,000 health for your companion. Hasten Deflection, of course, is going to give me a faster shield recharge. You could switch this out for anything you wanted to, whether you want more armor, whether you want to use a different bond mod, entirely up to you. Kubros beyond a certain level can be quite squishy, so it is nice having a little bit of added survivability with that little bit of shield gating. And then, of course, we've got Fetch at the end so that it actually goes and picks up all of my loot. Now, when it comes to Kubro Claws, right now, this is pretty much the de facto setup that most players are running, with the exception of the posture. You're going to switch this out depending on which posture you want to bring on whichever Kubro you're using, but you're going to use Bite for crit chance, crit damage. You're going to use Burning Claws simply to bump up that status chance and deal a lot of heat damage. You've got Maul for melee damage. You've got Precision, Conditioning for melee damage converted to slash damage. Then, if you're using Kubros, Mecha Overdrive is going to convert 60% of your primary weapon's status chance and give it to your Kubro and also give it a 90% status duration. So basically you want a primary weapon with a very high status chance, which is why I have 122% status right now. Then you've got Cult of Weak, which is basically like Condition Overload. You've got Hunter Synergy, which is going to do the same as Mecha Overdrive, except it's for crit chance. So 30% of your primary weapon's crit chance is going to be added to your Kubro. Then you've got Immunity Resistance, which is going to give you 50% status damage, and you're going to be doing a lot of that. So basically you want a primary weapon on your Warframe that has a very high status chance and a very high crit chance as well. Incarnate Dread, Incarnate Paris, whether you want to bring the Incarnate Strun, entirely up to you which weapon you want to bring to amplify this the most. Of course, if you have a Riven on that primary weapon, it's going to be much better because it's going to carry across as well. Now, if you wanted to, you could use Bellringer as a crowd control mod, because melee attacks will then knock enemies down, and if you're using Duplex Bond, then of course those clones are also going to be knocking enemies down. So it has a nice bit of an effect, but it has to be an actual physical melee attack, whereas before I think it was working a different way, so they had to change that. But it is an option if you wanted to use it. Now, this is a complete mess. This is my abomination, a post-it note Sunica Kubro, and it is incredibly powerful. Literally the hardest hitting beast in the game. 10 years ago, I made this video. It was my first Sunica Kubro. 10 years. They were new, they were shiny, but their AI was dreadful. They had no way to pick up resources for you, and they just didn't feel as good as, I guess, Carrier Prime back then, because that was the go-to Sentinel. But then you fast forward to the present day, and recent buffs have made him much better. Much more powerful. In update 37, they increased the Sunica's base damage to 550, which is 200 damage higher than the closest Kubro, the Horus, and much higher than any other beast. They also changed its abilities, which initially broke the pet and had it just standing still doing nothing and getting killed, but then the hotfixed that issue. Now, its Savagery ability now teleports between 8 enemies in a 10-meter radius and knocks them down, and its Unleashed ability now targets Eximus units, dealing 300% damage to their Overguard. So the Sunica is an Eximus hunter, and you can combine this with the Assassin Posture mod from their claws for another 300% damage to Eximus or priority targets. Now, for modding my Sunica Kubro, I've modded it pretty much the same as my Chaser, but it is worth noting that Contagious Bond on any companion right now is insane, so it is always an option. In fact, a lot of footage that you've seen of pets nuking enemies in the simulacrum and in missions is basically just Contagious Bond doing all of the heavy lifting, but I like seeing multiple Kubros running around and attacking things, basically a little beast army. And even though the duplex clones can't take advantage of Contagious Bond, your main Kubro still can trigger it and can still rack up a body count, so if you wanted to use them together, then you could. Your game, your pet, go feckin' nuts. Now, for my Sunica Kubro's claw build, again, it is pretty much like my Chaser Kubro setup, which is the go-to build for claws right now. If you want to stack heat, that is, you could leave that out and you could try multiple elements if you wanted to. Again, your build, have fun. But this is how I modded mine. So this is my Pharaoh Predacite, Roticus Rainmaker. Now this and the Helmet Charger are probably my favourite beasts in the game at the moment since their changes. The Pharaoh Predacite has a nice amount of crowd control, but also a nice amount of viral spreading or applying gas to your weapons as well, depending on how you want to mod it. Now, its base damage and its status chance have seen nice buffs with the update 37, as did its Anabolic Pollination ability, which had its duration buffed. Its endoparasitic vector ability now has visible links between enemies, those tentacles can now be seen, and its range has been doubled, and it can also grab enemies that walk into the range after the tentacles have already been spawned. So this is a beast companion that can buff your weapons with toxic damage, can deal viral procs with those tentacles, and can crowd control as well. So it has a lot going for it if you want to bring it with your setup for whatever mission you are running. The build with this isn't so much about the endoparasitic vector or the volatile parasite, which are really good. This is basically going to link multiple enemies and slow them down, but then it's also going to deal 20 viral damage to them as well before they move away. Then you've got volatile parasite, which is basically going to put one maggot onto an enemy. It's going to kind of mind control it. Other enemies are then going to shoot at him, and if he dies, he will explode, dealing a big enough chunk of viral damage. But the entirety of this build is based around Duplex Bond, Contagious Bond. Of course, Pack Leader is going to allow me to heal my pet back up because right now they still feel quite squishy. Resourceful Retriever is going to give me an 18% chance at double resource pickups, which is absolutely huge. But Contagious Bond is basically going to allow me to spread multiple effects, and because I'm using the heat mod on its claws, it's going to kill groups of enemies pretty damn quickly. Synth Deconstruct is going to allow me to get extra health orbs on the ground, and because I've got Equilibrium on most of my frames, it's going to allow me to regen energy. Now, when it comes to the claws, I've actually gone for the balanced posture and not the frenzied one or the assassin one. Both of them are good. The frenzied one is going to give me a bonus of 80% status duration while it's jumping from enemy to enemy to enemy. And the assassin one, of course, is going to prioritize Eximus units, dealing 300% extra damage to overguard enemies. But the balanced one basically gives me stagger when it passes within 2 meters of enemies. So the priority with the claws was basically Burning Claws is going to give me a huge amount of heat damage. So all I'm going to be dealing is mainly heat damage and of course a bit of slash in there as well. But Bell Ringer is going to knock enemies down whenever I attack them. So when you combine Bell Ringer with your balanced posture, you've got knockdowns, you've got staggers, but then with the actual abilities from this Pharaoh Predicite, you're also getting the slow from this ability while linking enemies together, and you're also getting explosions from this. Now you're also getting Duplex Bond, which means every time you spend 100 energy, you're going to clone your Kubro, or your Predicite, sorry. So you're going to have 3 of them running around, running into enemies with that Bell Ringer, knocking them down. You're also going to be slowing them, but you're also going to be spreading effects because of Contagious Bond. Your clones won't use abilities, they'll just be running around using Bell Ringer and of course staggering and knocking enemies, while also just straight up attacking them. And because you're spreading heat procs, it's basically going to prime a lot of enemies. Now, it's not as good as a Verglass Prime or even the Tazakor right now. They, I think, still outperform pretty much every weapon or every pet that we have in the game, but it is fun and good nonetheless. Now, this is my Helmet Charger. Now, the cool thing about the Helmet Charger is that its claws deal toxic damage independent from other damage types. So you can mod it for heat and then it will deal slash damage, but it will also deal toxic damage separately. On top of this, its trample ability will charge at enemies, leaving a trail of virulence in its path, which damages any enemy that then walks on top of it, and it will also deal 160 damage to anything in its path. On top of this, it will scale its damage, health and armor for every enemy that trample hits. So in a way, it's the ideal companion to bring with a grouping mechanic. It would definitely be worth it. Perfect for Nidus since it's kind of him in pet form. They've also buffed its status chance to 25% as well. Now, like I said, this and my Pharaoh Predicite have been the ones I've enjoyed the most since update 37, and it's probably because of the multiple elements that they can deal while also having some crowd control thrown into the mix, because it fits my playstyle perfectly. I'm sure you guys will have different pets that you've been enjoying more, or you'll have modded your pets to fit a certain build with a certain Warframe, and that's going to be your go-to setup for that pet, and you might not use that pet with different Warframes, whereas I'm kind of looking at these pets in a universal way that I want to be able to bring them with pretty much any Warframe that I can equip. But when it comes to modding my Helmet Charger, this is how I went about it. Now, this is my Helmet Charger's mod setup. I've gone for Primal Animal Instinct, of course, for Loot Radar, Resourceful Retriever, again for 18% chance at double resources, Duplex Bond for a little bit of an army running around and 50% chance at dropping energy orbs, Tenacious Bond again because my claws will have more than 50% crit chance, so it's going to increase my crit multiplier, Hasten Deflection for shield recharge, Trample, which of course is one of his abilities, which will allow me to deal 160 damage to all enemies and then get a 10% melee damage, health and armor for every enemy that I hit. Enhanced Vitality, which you will change for Link depending on your Warframe. Synth Deconstruct for energy, or for health orb, sorry. Momentous Bond, which will give me 120% bonus elemental damage onto my companion whenever I kill an Eximus unit, and of course Fetch for bringing me my loot. Now you could also, if you wanted to, you could also use the strain mods, completely up to you if you want to use the strain set with this, so that it will spawn maggots which will then explode, dealing corrosive damage, but I've decided not to go with that. I kind of like this build on most of my companions, which you can probably tell, right? There's not a whole lot of diversity with my builds. I have a particular playset which I enjoy, or play style which I enjoy. But overall, the Helmet Charger is one of my favorite companions right now, and you should definitely check it out. If you don't have one, get your hands on one and let me know what you think of it, or what way you mod it, or what way you prefer to run it. Which leaves me with my Panzer Vulpaphiler, a powerhouse for spore spreading and self-reviving. It's perfect for boosting your damage through viral procs. It's still one of the best pets and probably always will be, since it doesn't die. It just devolves into a sentinel that floats beside you and then continues to do its thing. And it can now use resourceful retriever mods or the other 2 retriever mods for extra loot. So it is a companion that doesn't die and can continue to get you loot. So its viral quill's precept ability allows it to spread viral to nearby enemies every 5 seconds inside 20 meters. These work similar to Saren's spores, and if a target affected by the quills then dies, it will add another spore and then continue to spread. And if the Vulpaphyla itself takes a death blow, which sentinels and companions tend to do a lot of, then thanks to its devolution precept ability, it will just turn itself into a larva and float beside you, continuing to attack enemies, dealing viral damage. So it's good simply because it spreads viral and it can't die, and it can continue to get you loot. Simple as that. Now, this is my Panzer Vulpaphyla's mod setup. Of course, Viral Quills to spread viral, that's its main ability. Tenacious Bond to increase my crit damage multiplier, since it has got way more than 50% crit chance. Momentous Bond to give me that 120% bonus random elemental damage for 30 seconds whenever I kill an Eximus unit. Contagious Bond, because it would be silly not to bring Contagious Bond on a Panzer Vulpaphyla, simply because it's spreading plenty of elements. Synth Deconstruct is going to give me a 25% chance at a health orb, and I'm using Equilibrium on pretty much every build, so I kind of want these. Fetch, of course, to pick up my loot. Metal Fiber can be switched out for whatever. I just fancied more armor. Enhanced Vitality can be switched out for Link, depending on your Warframe. Resourceful Retriever, simply to give me an 18% chance at extra pickups. And then the Panzer Devolution, so that whenever I take a death blow, or my Vulpaphyla takes a death blow, it will devolve into larva and continue to attack enemies. And for its claw setup, it's pretty much the same claw setup that all of my other companions have, with the exception I've put Bloodthirst in here to, I guess, replenish health whenever it deals slash damage. But for the most part, it is just overall damage, crit chance, crit damage, bring crit chance for my primary weapon over, and then I've got precision conditioning for increasing my slash damage, immunity resistance for status damage, Bloodthirst, like I said, then you've got Burning Claws for heat damage and of course status chance, and then I've got Cult of the Week, which is your kind of mini condition overload. Now, of course, to get your hands on any of these pets, you will first need to have completed the Howl of the Kubrow quest to get yourself the incubator. Then it's a case of getting eggs for the 2 Kubrows on Earth and then hatching those eggs in the incubator, and it is random which type of Kubrow you will get. For the Pharaoh Predacite and for the Vulpaphyla on this list, you will need to head over to Cambion Drift in Deimos to find Predacites or Vulpaphylas out in the wild. Then you will need to trank them with a trank gun, capture them, bring them back into Deimos to Sun, who will revivify them using your Entrati standing, and then you can alter which one you have based on the mutagens and the antigens that you put into the recipe. Now, for the Helmet Charger, you're going to need to let your Warframe get a cyst on its neck, which will ruin your fashion, but this will then take 6 days for that cyst to grow. Then you can pop a Kubrow egg. That's a really bad choice of words, I'm so sorry. You can put a Kubrow egg into your incubator with the Warframe that has that cyst. There will be a new option to drain that cyst and combine it with the Kubrow egg. Then you can incubate it and you have a Helmet Charger. Now, it goes without saying that other Kubrows like the Sahasa Kubrow or Kavats like the Smita and the Ardaza are still pretty good. I wish the Vaska Kavat, the vampire one, was a bit better. Its kind of precept abilities aren't exactly the best. But the 5 I mentioned in this video are just my favourites. This is not a top 5 list or a best of list, because if it was the best companion list, you would also have Sentinels or Hounds in here as well, because they are phenomenal right now. This is just the 5 companions or beast companions that I'm enjoying the most right now. But let me know in the comment section below what you think of the 5 that I've chosen. What is your go-to beast companions right now? Not your Sentinels or your Hounds, your beast companions. If you've been enjoying them since the changes, hit that like button if this video helped you out in any little way at all, or don't if it didn't. Have a great day, and as always, thanks for watching.
You keep reading between the lines. There's nothing there for you to complicate. We're not aligned. You say you listen, but guessing that's just another sign. Not growing up, you're growing old. You laugh, keep